The glass shattered. Red wine spread across white linen like blood at a crime scene. In that frozen moment, the shy waitress everyone ignored finally looked up, and the most powerful woman in the room realized she'd made a fatal mistake. This is the story of Maya Reed, the invisible girl who brought down an empire with nothing but whispered words. A tale of hidden genius, calculated revenge, and the dangerous game played between those who have everything and those with nothing left to lose. Stay until the end. Like this video. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The restaurant didn't have a name on the door. Places like Aurelius never needed one. If you had to ask where it was, you didn't belong there. Tucked into a quiet corner of Manhattan's Upper East Side, between a private gallery and a building with no visible entrance, it existed in that peculiar space where old money met new power. The kind of establishment where senators dined with tech moguls, where billion-dollar deals were sealed over 70-year-old scotch, where the waitstaff moved like ghosts and knew better than to remember faces. Maya Reed had been one of those ghosts for 3 years. She navigated the narrow service corridor with practiced ease, balancing a tray of champagne flutes that cost more than her monthly rent. The kitchen hummed behind her, controlled chaos she'd learned to tune out. Chef Emmanuel was screaming about truffle shavings again. The sommelier was arguing with someone about a vintage. Normal Wednesday evening soundtrack. Table 7 needs water, Marcus whispered as he passed, his tray loaded with appetizers that looked like tiny sculptures. The blonde keeps snapping her fingers. Maya nodded. She'd already noticed Table 7. Hard not to. Ethan Cole had arrived 20 minutes ago, and the entire restaurant had shifted its center of gravity. He moved through spaces like that, quiet authority that didn't need announcement. 6'2", dark hair going silver at the temples, wearing exhaustion and a $10,000 suit with equal comfort. The tech blogs called him a genius. Forbes called him a disruptor. His daughter, if the gossip sites were accurate, just called him tired. Maya had served him twice before. He always ordered the same thing, grilled salmon, no butter, sparkling water with lime. He said, please. He made eye contact. He tipped exactly 22% and remembered names. Tonight, he wasn't alone. The woman on his arm was everything Manhattan promised and rarely delivered. Tall, sharp-featured, wrapped in a dress that probably required its own insurance policy. Vivian Clark. Maya had recognized her immediately from the society pages. Some kind of art consultant, though nobody seemed clear on what that actually meant. She'd been photographed at 3 different charity galas in the past month, always with different men, always wearing that same cool smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maya. Jean-Pierre, the floor manager, materialized beside her with that supernatural ability all good managers possessed. You're taking Table 7 tonight. Marcus said, I know what Marcus said, you're taking it. His expression said the decision wasn't up for discussion. Mr. Cole requested you specifically. That made Maya pause. He did? Left instructions with reservations, said you were... Jean-Pierre consulted his tablet. Efficient and unobtrusive. High praise from a man who once fired an entire PR team for being too enthusiastic. Maya felt something twist in her chest. Not quite pride. More like the uncomfortable weight of being noticed when you'd worked so hard to disappear. I'll take care of them, she said quietly. I know you will. That's why he asked for you. She collected the water pitcher, filtered through some ridiculous Icelandic volcanic rock system, and made her way across the dining room. The space was designed to feel intimate despite its size. Low lighting, tables spaced for privacy, acoustic panels hidden in the ceiling to swallow conversation. Every detail calibrated to make the powerful feel comfortable discussing things that should never be discussed in public. Ethan was studying his phone when she approached, that slight furrow between his eyebrows that meant he was processing something complex. Vivian was examining her reflection in a knife, adjusting an earring that didn't need adjusting. Good evening, Mr. Cole, Maya said softly. Welcome back. He looked up, and something in his expression loosened slightly. Recognition. Maybe relief. Maya, thank you. It's good to see you again. Likewise. May I start you with some water? Please. He gestures to his companion. Vivian, this is Maya. She'll be taking care of us tonight. Maya, Vivian Clark. Vivian's gaze slid over Maya like she was furniture, Didn't extend a hand, didn't smile, just gave a slight nod that managed to convey both acknowledgement and dismissal in a single movement. Sparkling or still? Maya asked, keeping her voice neutral. Still, Ethan said. Vivian, does it come from somewhere that matters, or is it just tap water pretending to be important? Vivian's voice had that particular edge cultivated in expensive boarding schools, crisp consonants, vowels that suggested better breeding than you'd ever possess. It's filtered through volcanic rock from Iceland, Maya replied evenly. But if you'd prefer bottled, we have several options. How charmingly defensive, still will be fine. Maya poured in silence, keeping her hand steady. She'd learned early that the best response to casual cruelty was no response at all. Let it slide past like water over stone. Don't give them the reaction they're fishing for. Have you had a chance to review the menu? She asked when both glasses were full. Ethan started to respond, but Vivian cut him off. We'll need a few minutes. Some of us actually read before deciding, rather than just ordering the same boring thing every time. The jab was clearly directed at Ethan, but delivered while looking at Maya, a peculiar kind of triangulated aggression, using the help as a weapon against your date. Of course. I'll check back shortly. Maya stepped away before Ethan could apologize. She'd seen that look before, the slight wince of someone realizing their companion was performing badly, but not sure how to stop it. Back in the service corridor, Marcus caught her eye and made a face. Blonde's a real piece of work, huh? She's fine. Maya, I watched her look at you like you were something she stepped in. That's not fine. It's Wednesday, Maya said simply. Wednesday people are always like that. Wednesday people? The ones who come mid-week, not special occasion, not weekend celebration, just regular flexing. They're usually the worst. She adjusted her apron, checking her reflection in the polished steel of the service station. Brown hair pulled back tight, minimal makeup, the kind of face that blended into backgrounds. Exactly how she preferred it. You okay? Marcus asked, more seriously. Always am. She wasn't, but that was beside the point. 20 minutes later, she returned to find Ethan with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in the clipped tones that meant business crisis. Vivian had ordered for both of them, the tasting menu, the expensive wine pairing, the works. Her way of asserting control while he was distracted. We'll start with the oysters, Vivian announced, not looking up from her own phone. He'll have the salmon for his main, I'll have the duck. And do try to remember which plate is which when you serve them. I know that can be challenging. Maya wrote it down, keeping her expression blank. Of course. Any dietary restrictions I should inform the kitchen about? Just competence restrictions for the service staff, apparently. Ethan covered his phone. Vivian. What? I'm being perfectly pleasant. Aren't I being pleasant? She directed this at Maya with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Perfectly, Maya agreed softly. I'll put your order in right away. In the kitchen, she relayed everything to the expo station with mechanical precision. Chef Emmanuel noticed her expression, or more accurately, her lack of one. Bad table? Just Wednesday, she said again. Ah, merde. Those are always the worst. Back on the floor, the evening settled into a familiar rhythm. She moved between her 3 other tables with easy efficiency. A couple celebrating an anniversary. A group of lawyers discussing something involving offshore accounts. A single diner who ordered the chef's tasting menu and ate in contemplative silence. Easy tables. Generous tables. The kind that made her job feel almost normal. Table 7 was the anchor dragging behind her. Vivian had shifted into full performance mode now that Ethan was off the phone. Loud enough to be heard at neighboring tables, performing sophistication like a one-woman show. She name-dropped galleries, mentioned her dear friend, who was absolutely essential at Christie's, laughed in a way that seemed designed to draw attention. Ethan was trying. Maya had to give him that. He asked questions, engaged in conversation, attempted to seem interested in a story about some artist whose name Maya didn't recognize. But his phone kept lighting up. His attention kept fragmenting. And every time he glanced at the screen, Vivian's performance escalated another notch. The oysters, Maya announced quietly, setting down the plate. Vivian examined them with theatrical skepticism. These are supposed to be from Prince Edward Island. They are. They look like they're from New Jersey. I assure you they're not. Maya kept her voice level. Chef Emmanuel has direct relationships with the suppliers. Everything is verified. How reassuring. I'm sure your chef knows best. The way she said your chef made it sound like an insult. Like Maya had personally waded into the Atlantic and plucked these oysters from contaminated waters. Will there be anything else? Not at the moment. Try not to hover. It's unnerving. Maya retreated, catching Marcus's eye across the dining room. He mouthed something that looked like, "Kill me," and she almost smiled. Almost. The thing about working in a place like Aurelius was that you became invisible by necessity. The patrons didn't want to see you as human. That would complicate the fantasy. They needed you to be a service-providing mechanism, an NPC in the elaborate game of their important lives. Maya had made an art of disappearing. She'd learned it young, out of necessity rather than choice. Growing up in foster care taught you which version of invisible kept you safest. Too visible, and you became a target. Too hidden, and you got forgotten. There was a sweet spot right in the middle, present enough to avoid punishment, bland enough to avoid attention. She'd carried that skill into adulthood like a survival tool she couldn't quite put down. The evening progressed. Courses arrived and departed. Wine bottles were opened, evaluated, poured. Vivian's commentary continued like a running stream of consciousness designed to establish dominance, observations about other diners, critiques of the restaurant's design choices, pointed little jabs at Ethan's work-life balance. "You're married to that company," she said over the duck course. "I'm starting to think I'm just the mistress you parade around to prove you have a life." "That's not fair," Ethan replied, but his phone was lighting up again. "I'm sorry, this deal is always falling apart, always urgent, always more important than whatever's happening right in front of you." She took a long sip of wine. Must be exhausting, caring about things so much. Some of us have responsibilities, and some of us know how to delegate. Maya appeared at exactly the wrong moment to clear plates, catching the tail end of the exchange. Ethan looked embarrassed. Vivian looked triumphant. The dynamic between them was becoming clearer with every passing minute. She was performing power, he was performing attention, and neither of them seemed particularly happy about it. "How is everything?" Maya asked, because she had to. "Adequate," Vivian said, which was restaurant speak for, "I'm going to complain later." "The duck was excellent," Ethan offered, trying to compensate for his date's rudeness with extra courtesy. "Please give my compliments to the chef." "Of course." As Maya lifted Vivian's plate, the woman's hand shot out and gripped her wrist, not hard but firm enough to stop her. "You left lipstick on my water glass." Maya glanced down. The glass was spotless. "I apologize. I'll replace it immediately." "See that you do. Standards exist for a reason." The grip released. Maya collected the glasses, both perfectly clean, and walked away with measured steps. In the service corridor, she allowed herself exactly 5 seconds to close her eyes and breathe. Marcus appeared beside her. "I'm going to accidentally spill something on her." "You're not." "I'm seriously considering it." "Don't. She's not worth it." "You're a better person than me." Maya opened her eyes and looked at him. "No, I just know how to wait." Something in her tone made Marcus pause. "Maya, I need to get fresh water glasses." She moved away before he could ask questions she didn't want to answer. The thing was, Maya had noticed something during the evening. Small details that probably meant nothing individually, but added up to a pattern if you were paying attention. And Maya was always paying attention. The way Vivian's eyes scanned the room constantly, cataloging faces and evaluating net worth. The way she touched Ethan, always in public view, always when others might notice. The way she ordered the most expensive items with a particular kind of aggression, like she was proving a point to someone who wasn't even there. The way her earrings, which had seemed diamond at first glance, caught the light in a slightly wrong way. Cubic zirconia, Maya would bet money on it. Good quality, but not real. Which was fine, except Vivian had mentioned earlier they were a gift from a dear friend in Antwerp. The way her dress, despite being designer, had a faint threadbare quality at the hem. Professionally maintained, but old. Rotated through multiple events. Again, fine, except it contradicted the narrative of effortless wealth Vivian was performing. The way she'd flinched, just slightly, when Ethan mentioned his daughter earlier. A micro-expression of something that looked like frustration before the smooth mask reasserted itself. None of it meant anything. All of it meant something. Maya had a particular skill set that had nothing to do with carrying trays or remembering wine pairings. She was good at reading people. at seeing the small inconsistencies between what they presented and what they were. It had kept her alive in foster care, helped her navigate the systems designed to sort and categorize unwanted children. She'd never quite been able to turn it off. So she watched, listened, filed away details like a computer running background processes. When she returned with fresh water glasses, unnecessary, but the customer was always right, Vivian was in the middle of a story about some gallery opening. Ethan's phone was pressed to his ear again, his expression tense. "I don't care what Jeng says. Those numbers don't work," he was saying quietly. "Run them again. Use the revised projections. I'll wait." Vivian's smile had gone tight at the edges. Being ignored clearly wasn't part of her plan for the evening. "Your water," Maya said softly, placing the glasses. Vivian didn't acknowledge her, just kept talking, volume increasing. "So, Sebastian, you know Sebastian, the curator from MoMA. He told me absolutely in confidence that they're considering a retrospective." "Hold on," Ethan said into the phone, then covered it. "I'm sorry, this is important." "More important than us?" "Vivian, it's $100 million deal that's currently imploding. I need 5 minutes. You've been on the phone for the entire meal." "Because the entire deal has been falling apart for the entire meal." Frustration was starting to crack through his carefully maintained composure. "I'm sorry, I know this isn't ideal, but I need to handle this." He stood, phone still pressed to his ear, and walked toward the restaurant's entrance where the reception area provided slightly more privacy, leaving Vivian alone at the table, leaving Vivian alone with Maya. The shift in energy was immediate. The performance dropped away like a mask being set aside, and what remained was something harder, sharper. The woman underneath the polish. "You must love this," Vivian said conversationally, examining her nails. Maya was clearing the breadbasket. "I'm sorry? Watching your betters squabble. Does it make you feel superior, realizing that money doesn't buy happiness?" She looked up, and her eyes were cold. "Or does it just make you bitter, knowing you'll never have enough of it to even find out?" "I'm just here to make sure you have a pleasant evening." "How noble! The servant class maintaining their dignity through service." Vivian leaned back in her chair, studying Maya like she was a specimen under glass. "Let me guess, struggling actress, failed writer, or just someone who never quite figured out how to be anything more than background decoration?" Maya's hands didn't shake as she gathered the bread plates. Years of practice. "Will you be wanting dessert?" "I asked you a question. I'm not sure it was the kind of question that deserves an answer." That landed. Vivian's expression flickered, surprise, then something darker. "Excuse me?" "I'll bring the dessert menu." Maya turned to leave. "Stay." "Right. There." The command had enough edge that Maya stopped, not because she had to, because something in her was curious where this would go. Vivian stood moving closer, invading space. Power move, basic but effective. "You think you're clever, don't you? Quiet little mouse, but so superior on the inside. I can see it in your eyes. You think you're better than me." "I think I need to check on my other tables. Those people don't matter. They're not sitting with Ethan Cole. They didn't arrive in a car that costs more than you'll make in 5 years. They're not going to leave a good review if their service suffers because I'm being detained by someone with an abundance of insecurity and free time." The words were out before Maya could stop them. Professional suicide, probably. But something in Vivian's performance had finally punctured the careful control Maya maintained. Vivian's face went white, then red. "How dare you?" "I apologize," Maya said quickly, defaulting back to training. "That was inappropriate. If you'll excuse me." She walked away before the situation could escalate further, her heart hammering against her ribs. Stupid. So stupid. You didn't talk back to customers. You didn't engage. You certainly didn't insult them to their faces. Jean-Pierre caught her in the service corridor. "What happened?" "Nothing." "Maya, nothing happened. I handled it." She kept moving, muscle memory carrying her to the polishing station where she pretended to inspect glassware she'd already inspected twice. Through the small window in the service door, she could see Ethan returning to the table, could see Vivian's face transform instantly back into pleasant sophistication, the mask sliding perfectly back into place. Performance. It was all performance. But so was Maya's, wasn't it? The shy waitress, the invisible girl, the one who never pushed back. Except tonight, for just a moment, the performance had cracked, and Vivian had noticed. The rest of the meal proceeded with mechanical precision. Maya delivered dessert, chocolate souffle for her, sorbet for him. She poured coffee. She processed the payment, Ethan's black Amex card that had no limit. She maintained perfect professional distance. Vivian didn't speak to her again, didn't even look at her, which was somehow worse than the earlier cruelty. It was erasure, punishment through absence of acknowledgement. When they finally stood to leave, Ethan caught Maya's attention one last time. "Thank you for everything. You were wonderful as always." "My pleasure, Mr. Cole. Have a good evening." He hesitated like he wanted to say something else. Apologize, maybe, for his date's behavior, but Vivian was already walking toward the door, expecting him to follow, and the moment passed. Maya watched them go. Ethan holding the door, Vivian sweeping through it like royalty, both of them disappearing into a Manhattan evening that would swallow them whole. "Well," Marcus said, appearing at her elbow, "that was a nightmare." "It's fine." "Maya, she was awful to you." "People are awful. It's not a breaking news story." She started collecting their glasses, stacking plates with practiced efficiency. "Besides, it's over now." But it wasn't over. Because as Maya cleared the table, she found something that made her pause. A small leather card holder tucked half under Vivian's napkin. The kind wealthy people used to organize their various important cards. She picked it up, intending to run after them. They couldn't have gotten far. But then it fell open in her hands, and Maya saw something that made her blood run cold. Inside weren't business cards or credit cards or any of the usual detritus of the wealthy. Instead, there were IDs. Multiple IDs. All with Vivian's face, but different names. Different addresses. All professionally made, all perfect forgeries. Vivian Clark was there. But so was Victoria Chen, Veronica Castellano, Valentina Cross. A dozen identities laid out like a deck of cards. Maya's mind, which had been quietly cataloging inconsistencies all evening, suddenly snapped into focus. The fake jewelry, the old dress, the way Vivian had scanned the room, evaluating targets, the way she'd positioned herself with Ethan in the most visible part of the restaurant. This wasn't a date. This was a job. And Ethan Cole, brilliant, exhausted, distracted Ethan Cole, was the mark. Maya stood there in the empty dining room, holding evidence of what was very clearly a sophisticated con operation, and felt something shift inside her chest. That old instinct from childhood, the one that knew how to read danger, the one that had kept her alive when the system had tried to swallow her whole. She should give this to Jean-Pierre. Let management handle it. Not her problem, not her business. But then she thought about Ethan mentioning his daughter earlier, the reason he worked so hard. The reason he looked so tired. She thought about Vivian's cold smile. She thought about all the people like Vivian who moved through the world, taking what they wanted from people who made the mistake of being vulnerable. And Maya made a decision that would change everything. She slipped the card holder into her apron pocket. "Hey," Marcus called. "You ready to close out?" "Almost," Maya called back. "I just need to check something first." She didn't go home that night. Not right away. Instead, she took the card holder to a 24-hour internet cafe in the village, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and everything was cash. She created a temporary email account. She started searching. Vivian Clark was easy to trace once you knew what to look for. Society pages, charity event photos, always on someone's arm, never in the same city twice for long. The pattern was there if you knew how to see it. But when Maya searched for the other names, Victoria Chen, Veronica Castellano, Valentina Cross, she found something else. Police reports. Fraud investigations. Warrants. Victoria Chen had scammed a tech investor in San Francisco out of $2 million before disappearing. Veronica Castellano had run an art forgery operation in Miami that collapsed when the FBI got involved. Valentina Cross was wanted in 3 states for identity theft and wire fraud. All the same woman. All the same beautiful, confident, cruel woman who'd sat at table 7 tonight, insulting a waitress while planning to destroy a man's life. Maya sat back in the worn desk chair, surrounded by the glow of monitors and the smell of cheap coffee, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Anger. Not the hot, flash kind that burned out quickly. The cold, patient kind that could wait, that could plan. The kind that understood sometimes the invisible girl had power the visible ones never saw coming. She had until morning to decide what to do with this information. To decide whether Maya Reed, shy waitress who kept her head down and her voice quiet, was going to step out of the shadows, or whether she was going to do what she'd always done: disappear. Let someone else fight the battle. Stay safe. Outside the cafe windows, Manhattan glittered with 1,000 lit windows, 1,000 stories, 1,000 people performing their lives for audiences who might or might not be watching. Maya looked at the IDs spread across the desk in front of her. Then she looked at her own reflection in the dark computer screen. And she made her choice. The morning shift at Aurelius started at 9, but Maya arrived at 7:30 with shadows under her eyes and a plan she'd spent all night constructing. The restaurant looked different in daylight, less magical, more mechanical. The illusion stripped away to reveal what it really was: an expensive stage set, waiting for actors to bring it to life. She let herself in through the service entrance, nodding to the security guard who'd long ago stopped questioning why she showed up early. "Rough night?" Carlos asked, barely looking up from his coffee. "Something like that." She made her way to the staff room, a cramped space in the basement that smelled like old coffee and the lavender spray someone kept using to mask the mold problem management refused to fix. Her locker was third from the left, combination lock she'd memorized years ago. Inside, she kept the usual things: extra apron, comfortable shoes, the romance novel she'd been trying to finish for 3 months. And now, hidden in a folded cloth napkin at the bottom, Vivian's card holder with all its incriminating identities. Maya stared at it for a long moment, second-guessing everything. In the harsh fluorescent light of morning, her midnight plan seemed less like justice and more like spectacular overreach. Who was she to get involved? A waitress who'd stumbled onto something that was absolutely none of her business. She should turn it in. Let the authorities handle it. That was the smart play. But then she remembered Vivian's voice. "You must love this. Watching your better squabble." The casual cruelty of someone who thought being invisible meant being less than human. Maya closed her locker and headed upstairs. Jean-Pierre was already in his office, reviewing reservation logs with the intensity of a general planning an invasion. He looked up when Maya knocked. "You're early. I need to talk to you about table 7 from last night." His expression shifted to concerned. "Did something happen?" Mr. Cole didn't seem upset when he left. He left something behind. His date did, actually. Maya placed the card holder on his desk. "I think you should see this." Jean-Pierre opened it, his face going through several complicated emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, then shock, then something harder to read. He was quiet for a long time. "Where did you find this?" "Under her napkin when I was clearing. I was going to run after them, but when I opened it to find a name..." Maya let the sentence trail off. "I didn't know what to do, so I brought it to you." That was mostly true. The part about not knowing what to do was a lie, but Jean-Pierre didn't need to know about her midnight research session. "These are fake," he said finally, examining the IDs with the careful attention of someone who'd seen enough forgeries to recognize quality work. "Professional grade, not something you'd get at a campus bar." "I know. And you just found this?" "She must have dropped it by accident. People get careless." Maya kept her voice neutral. "I figured you'd know what to do with it." Jean-Pierre studied her for a moment, and Maya had the uncomfortable feeling he was seeing through her careful performance. But whatever he saw, he decided not to push. "I'll handle it," he said. "Thank you for bringing it to me." That was the right call. "Of course." "Maya." He stopped her as she turned to leave. "This stays between us for now. Understood?" "Understood." She left his office feeling the first crack in her plan's foundation. She'd assumed Jean-Pierre would immediately call the police, maybe contact Ethan Cole. A simple handoff of damning evidence to people better equipped to handle it. Instead, he'd use the phrase "I'll handle it" with that particular tone that meant the opposite of transparency. The morning prep shift was mechanical work that her body could do while her mind spun elsewhere. Folding napkins, polishing silverware, checking that every table setting met Aurelius's exacting standards. Marcus arrived at 8, full of gossip about some drama with the night bartender. "Are you even listening?" he asked after several minutes of monologue. "The bartender slept with the sommelier's ex," Maya recited. "Now there's tension about the wine recommendations." "Okay, you were listening. You just look like you're somewhere else." "Didn't sleep well." Still thinking about that horrible woman from last night? Maya set down the water glass she'd been polishing for too long. Do you ever wonder about the people who come here? Like, really wonder? Where their money comes from? What they do when they leave? Marcus considered this. Not really. I figure that's their business, not mine. Why? No reason. But there was a reason, and it was eating at her. Because the more she thought about it, the more she realized she'd made a critical miscalculation. She'd assumed exposing Vivian would be simple. Show the evidence, let justice happen, move on with her life. Except nothing involving people like Ethan Cole was ever simple. She found out just how complicated at 10:15 when Jean-Pierre called her back to his office. This time, he wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit, not quite as expensive as Ethan's, but close, stood by the window, radiating the particular energy of someone used to being the most important person in any room. Maya, this is Daniel Rothstein. He's Mr. Cole's head of security. Security, not legal, not police. Private security, which meant this was being handled outside normal channels. Ms. Reed. Rothstein's handshake was firm, evaluating. I understand you found something last night that belongs to Ms. Clark. I found a card holder with multiple fraudulent IDs inside. I don't know if they're fraudulent. I'm not an expert. Maya kept her voice steady. Play dumb. Don't give anything away. But you looked at them. I opened the case to see whose it was, to return it. And then you brought it to Jean-Pierre instead of running after the couple who just left. By the time I found it, they were already gone. I made a judgment call. Rothstein smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Jean-Pierre tells me you served Mr. Cole's table last night, that you were specifically requested. Mr. Cole has been here before. He remembers names. What did you think of his companion? The question felt like a trap. Maya chose her words carefully. She seemed very comfortable in expensive restaurants. That's diplomatic. From what I understand, she wasn't particularly kind to you. Some customers are more demanding than others. She insulted you multiple times, made it clear she thought you were beneath her. Rothstein moved closer, studying Maya's face. That must have been frustrating. And there it was. The real question underneath all the others. Was this revenge? A spiteful waitress sabotaging a woman who'd been cruel to her? I've worked in service for a long time, Maya said quietly. If I got upset every time someone was rude, I'd never make it through a shift. I brought you the card holder because it seemed like something you should know about. That's all. That's all, Rothstein repeated. Nothing to do with the way she treated you? Mr. Rothstein, if I wanted revenge on every person who was mean to me, I'd need a much more elaborate plan than finding a dropped card holder. I'd also need a time machine to go back to middle school. She met his gaze directly. I'm good at my job because I don't take things personally. This seemed important, so I reported it. The silence stretched out. Jean-Pierre looked uncomfortable. Rothstein looked calculating. Finally, he nodded. Thank you for your time, Ms. Reed, and for your discretion. I trust this conversation stays confidential? Of course. We'll need to keep the card holder. Evidence. I assumed. If you remember anything else about last night, any detail about Ms. Clark, anything she said that seemed unusual, you'll contact me directly. He handed her a business card. Plain white. Just a name and phone number. The kind of card that screamed expensive discretion. I will. Back on the floor, Maya's hands were shaking slightly as she set tables for lunch service. She'd just been interrogated by private security. Not police. Private. Which meant whatever was happening with Vivian was being handled quietly, expensively, away from official channels. Rich people justice. Different rules. The lunch shift was busy enough to keep her occupied. A steady stream of power lunches, expense account meals, the kind of crowd that treated restaurants like conference rooms with better lighting. She moved through it automatically, her mind elsewhere. At 2:30, during the lull before dinner prep, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Reed, this is Daniel Rothstein. We spoke earlier. Her stomach dropped. Yes, I remember. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you do anything with those IDs besides bring them to Jean-Pierre? Make copies, take photos, search the names online? Maya's mouth went dry. Had he somehow tracked her internet cafe session? Was that possible? No, she lied. I looked at them. realized they seemed wrong, and brought them to my manager. That's all. You're sure? I'm sure. Because if you did search those names, you might have found some concerning information. Information that might make you think you should get involved in something that's really none of your business. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I found a card holder and reported it, Maya said, keeping her voice level despite her racing heart. I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not involved in anything. Good. Let's keep it that way. Mr. Cole appreciates your discretion. There's a bonus in your next paycheck. Call it a thank you for your professionalism. He hung up before she could respond. Maya stared at her phone, feeling the walls closing in. They were paying her off. Politely, professionally, but that's what it was. Shut up, money. Don't ask questions, money. She should feel relieved. She'd done her civic duty, reported suspicious activity, and was being compensated for her trouble. Everyone wins, except Ethan Cole, who was apparently still seeing a woman with a dozen fake identities and a history of fraud across multiple states. Maya made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot. When she finally clocked out at 11, Marcus caught up with her in the locker room. You okay? You've been weird all day. I'm fine. Maya, I've known you for 3 years. You're never fine. You're just varying degrees of handling it. Today, you look like you're barely handling it. She wanted to tell him, wanted to unload the whole complicated mess onto someone who might understand. But Rothstein's warning was clear: discretion, silence, stay out of it. Just tired, she said instead. Didn't sleep well. The woman from last night is still bothering you. Yeah, that was true enough. Something like that. Marcus studied her for a moment, then pulled her into a quick hug. Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone. You know that, right? I know. But she did have to carry it alone, because telling Marcus meant involving him, and she wouldn't do that. This mess was hers. She took the subway home to her studio in Washington Heights, a tiny apartment with a view of a brick wall and rent that still took half her paycheck. Home felt like a relief after the day's tension. She locked the door, kicked off her shoes, and immediately opened her laptop. The internet cafe had been a decent precaution, but she needed more information, needed to understand what she was really dealing with. She created another temporary email account, this time routing through a VPN she'd set up years ago for reasons she could barely remember. Paranoia from her foster care days, when privacy felt like the only thing she could control. Then she started digging deeper into Vivian Clark's history. The woman was a ghost, or rather, several ghosts layered on top of each other. Each identity had a carefully constructed online presence, social media accounts, professional profiles, even some articles mentioning attendance at charity events. But none of it went back more than a few years. No childhood photos, no college history. Nothing before the persona emerged fully formed. Classic signs of constructed identity. Maya found a pattern in the men Vivian targeted. All wealthy, all recently single or divorced, all with children they were devoted to. The profile was specific enough to be deliberate. She wasn't just looking for money. She was looking for a particular kind of vulnerability. Ethan Cole fit perfectly. Widower, single father, building an empire while trying to raise a daughter alone. The kind of man who might overlook red flags because he was too tired to see them, too isolated to trust his instincts, too desperate for connection to question whether it was real. At 3 a.m, Maya found something that made her stop cold. A blog post from 6 months ago, written by a man named Richard Castellano. His wife, Veronica, had disappeared, taking $4 million from their joint accounts. The police couldn't find her. Private investigators came up empty. She'd vanished like smoke. But Richard had posted photos from happier times, and there was Veronica Castellano smiling at a charity gala in Miami, the same woman who'd sat at table 7 calling Maya furniture. The post was bitter, angry, devastated. Richard warned other men to be careful, said his wife had seemed perfect until she wasn't. Said the signs were there, but he'd been too in love to see them. He'd lost everything: his money, his dignity, his ability to trust. Maya sat back, feeling sick. This wasn't just fraud. This was destruction. Deliberate, calculated destruction of people's lives. And Ethan Cole was next in line. She should let Rothstein handle it. He clearly knew something was wrong. He had the resources to investigate properly. This wasn't her problem to solve. But Rothstein had paid her off and told her to stay quiet, which meant Maybe he wasn't trying to protect Ethan. Maybe he was trying to protect the company. The deal Ethan kept taking calls about. The $100 million arrangement that was apparently imploding. What if Vivian wasn't working alone? What if this was bigger than one con artist with fake IDs? Maya's phone buzzed, making her jump. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Miss Reed, I apologize for calling so late. Not Rothstein this time. This voice was familiar, exhausted, and instantly recognizable. Ethan Cole. Mr. Cole, Maya said carefully. Is everything all right? I'm not sure. Daniel Rothstein told me about the cardholder you found. Vivian's cardholder. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. You didn't cause anything. You prevented it. He was quiet for a moment. Can we meet? I'd like to talk to you about what you found, about what you saw last night. Every instinct Maya had screamed warning. This was the moment to back away, to say she'd already told Rothstein everything, to maintain the boundary between server and served. When? She heard herself ask instead. Now, if possible. I know it's late. I can send a car. Where? Somewhere private. Not the restaurant. Not my office. He sounded almost desperate. I have a daughter, Ms. Reed, and I think the woman I've been seeing might be trying to destroy my life. I need to know if I'm paranoid or if my instincts are right. Maya closed her eyes. This was it. The moment of choice. Stay invisible and safe or step into something that could consume her. There's an all-night diner on 187th Street, she said. It's not fancy, but it's quiet. Text me the address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up. Maya sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by the research she definitely wasn't supposed to have done, about to meet with a billionaire at 3:30 in the morning to discuss his girlfriend's criminal history. She thought about her entire career of staying invisible, of keeping her head down, of being the person nobody noticed. Then she grabbed her jacket and headed out into the Manhattan night. The diner was called Stella's, and it had been serving terrible coffee and decent pancakes to insomniacs and night shift workers for 40 years. Maya had discovered it her first week in the city, when loneliness and jet lag had left her wandering the streets at 4 in the morning. She slid into a corner booth and ordered coffee she didn't need. The place was nearly empty. Just her, a tired-looking nurse, and a man reading a newspaper from 3 days ago. Ethan arrived exactly 30 minutes later, looking profoundly out of place in his expensive coat and exhausted eyes. He spotted her immediately and crossed the cracked linoleum floor like he was navigating a foreign country. Thank you for meeting me, he said, sliding into the booth across from her. You want coffee? I want answers. Fair enough. Maya wrapped her hands around her cup, choosing words carefully. What did Rothstein tell you? That Vivian's cardholder contained multiple IDs with different names, that you found it and reported it, that I should be grateful for your discretion and let his team handle the investigation. That sounds reasonable. It would be, except Rothstein works for my company, not for me personally, and my company has a vested interest in keeping scandals quiet right now. Ethan leaned forward. So I'm asking you directly. What did you see last night? Not just the IDs, everything. Maya studied him. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, whose world was tilting sideways and he couldn't figure out which way was up. She recognized that expression, had seen it in mirrors during her own worst moments. She's a professional, Maya said quietly. The way she carried herself, the way she scanned the room, the way she touched you. Always in public view. It wasn't random, it was calculated. You got all that from serving dinner? I got that from watching people my entire life. You learn to read patterns when you grow up in foster care. It's survival. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Understanding, maybe. You see things other people miss. I see what people show me. Vivian was showing everyone a performance, but performances have tells. Like fake jewelry and old dresses, Ethan said, and Maya realized he'd been watching too. I noticed. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it didn't matter if her diamonds were real or if she rotated the same 3 outfits, that love wasn't about material things. Were you in love with her? The question was too personal, too direct, but they were past pretense now. I don't know, Ethan admitted. I was lonely, tired. She was beautiful and interested and uncomplicated, or so I thought. He ran a hand through his hair. My daughter hated her. Smart kid. 7 years old and a better judge of character than her father. He smiled without humor. Emma took one look at Vivian and asked if she was a Disney villain. I laughed, told her to be polite. Now I think maybe I should have listened. The waitress came by to refill Maya's coffee and take Ethan's order. He asked for black coffee and looked faintly surprised when it arrived in a chipped mug instead of fine china. "When was the last time you were in a place like this?" Maya asked. "College, probably. Before everything." He gestured vaguely. "Before the company, the money, the insulation from normal life." He took a sip and grimaced. "This is terrible coffee." "Best terrible coffee in Washington Heights." "You live around here?" "Few blocks away." "You?" "Tribeca, penthouse. Views of the river." He said it flatly, like reciting facts about someone else's life. "Very impressive. Very empty." They sat in silence for a moment. Two people from completely different worlds, connected by circumstance, and a con artist dropped evidence. "I searched the names on those IDs," Maya said finally. "I know I probably wasn't supposed to, but I did." Ethan's expression hardened. "And?" "Vivian Clark doesn't exist before 3 years ago, but Victoria Chen scammed a tech investor in San Francisco. Veronica Castellano ran an art forgery ring in Miami. Valentina Cross is wanted in 3 states. She paused. "They're all the same woman." "How bad?" "Millions of dollars. Ruined lives. One man lost everything and posted about it online, warning others. She has a pattern. Recent widowers or divorcees, successful, devoted to their children. She finds their vulnerability and exploits it." Ethan closed his eyes. "The deal. The $100 million acquisition. She's been very interested in it. Asked questions that seemed casual but were actually very specific. Details about the buyers, the timeline, the financing structure." "Industrial espionage," Maya said. "Or setting you up for fraud. Maybe both." "I need to end this, now, tonight." Rothstein answers to my board of directors, who would rather bury a scandal than address it. They don't want police involvement right before a major deal closes. They want quiet management. His voice was bitter. "But I have a daughter who's going to grow up reading about her father online. I have employees whose jobs depend on this company's reputation. I have—" He stopped, jaw working. "You have people counting on you," Maya finished quietly. "Yes." "So what are you going to do?" Ethan looked at her across the table. This waitress he barely knew, who'd somehow become the only person he could trust with the truth. "I'm going to expose her," he said. "Publicly, completely, before she can disappear again." He leaned forward. "But I need help. Someone who sees what I miss. Someone who knows how to be invisible when necessary." "You want me to help you catch a con artist?" "I want you to help me protect my daughter from growing up knowing her father was too blind to see the truth, that he let someone destroy everything out of loneliness and stupidity." Maya should say no. Should walk away from this mess before it consumed her. She was a waitress, not a detective, not a hero, just someone trying to survive in a city that ate people like her for breakfast. But she thought about Vivian's cold smile, about Richard Castellano's destroyed life, about Emma Cole, 7 years old, and asking if the pretty lady was a villain. "What's your plan?" she asked. Ethan's expression shifted to something harder, more focused. This was the man who'd built an empire from nothing. "Vivian's hosting a charity gala tomorrow night. She's on the planning committee. It's at the Metropolitan Club, very high profile. She'll be in her element, surrounded by potential future marks. You want to expose her there. I want to make it impossible for her to disappear quietly, in front of cameras, witnesses, people who matter in her world of targets. That's not just exposure. That's annihilation. She's tried to destroy me, my family, my company. She deserves annihilation." Maya understood that anger, had felt it herself more times than she could count. The cold fury that came from being underestimated, dismissed, treated like you were less than human. "I'll help you," she heard herself say. "But we do this right. No half-hearted measures. If we're burning her world down, we burn it completely." Ethan extended his hand across the table. "Partners?" Maya shook it, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her like a cloak. "Partners." She'd just agreed to help a billionaire take down a professional con artist at a charity gala for Manhattan's elite. The invisible waitress was about to step into the spotlight, and there was no going back. They had 18 hours to build a trap that wouldn't snap back on them. Maya left the diner at 4:30 in the morning with Ethan's private number in her phone and a plan that felt equal parts brilliant and insane. The subway ride back to her apartment was empty except for a man sleeping across 3 seats and her own racing thoughts. She should be terrified, should be second-guessing everything. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: purpose. Like all those skills she'd developed just to survive were finally being used for something that mattered. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her apartment door. Ethan. I need everything you found, every search result, every detail about her other identities. Send it to this email address. Maya hesitated. Sending evidence meant leaving a trail, making herself vulnerable, but they were past the point of half measures. She forwarded everything from her temporary accounts, then deleted the accounts themselves, covering tracks while simultaneously burning bridges. The contradiction wasn't lost on her. At 6 a.m., her phone rang again. I have a lawyer reviewing the evidence now, Ethan said without preamble. She's good, specializes in fraud cases. She says what you found is enough to get warrants issued, but it'll take time we don't have. So we go ahead with the gala plan. We go ahead. But Maya, you need to understand what you're walking into. These people, the ones who'll be at that event, they're not like the customers at Aurelius. They're a different level of wealth, different level of protection. If this goes wrong, they'll destroy you to protect their world. I've been destroyed before. I'm still here. The line went quiet for a moment, then, how old were you when you went into foster care? 6. House fire. Parents didn't make it out. The facts came out flat, practiced. She told this story so many times it didn't feel like hers anymore. Bounced around until I aged out at 18. Nothing dramatic, just the usual system failures. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me how to disappear when I needed to. Might be useful tonight. Tonight you're going to do the opposite of disappearing. There was something in his voice she couldn't quite read. I'm sending a car at 3 p.m. We need to get you ready. Ready how? You're going to a charity gala at the Metropolitan Club. You'll need a dress. Maya looked around her studio apartment, thrift store furniture, 2 plates, 1 pan, a life built on efficiency rather than comfort. I don't really do fancy dresses. I'm sending someone to handle it. Just trust me. Please. He hung up before she could argue. Maya managed 3 hours of restless sleep before her alarm dragged her back to consciousness. She called Jean-Pierre and lied smoothly about a family emergency, needing the night off. He wasn't happy, but he granted it. Another bridge quietly burning. The car arrived exactly at 3. Not a taxi, a town car with a driver who held the door open and called her Miss Reed like she was someone important. The surreal feeling intensified when they pulled up to a boutique in Soho that definitely didn't have prices in the window. Inside, a woman who introduced herself only as Diane was waiting with the kind of smile that suggested she'd seen everything and judged none of it. Mr. Cole explained the situation, Diane said, leading Maya past racks of clothes that probably cost more than her yearly rent. We need something that lets you blend with the crowd, but doesn't make you invisible. A careful balance. I'm good at invisible. Tonight you need to be memorable, but not for the wrong reasons. Diane pulled several dresses, examining each with a critical eye. Tell me about the woman we're dealing with. Maya blinked. What? The con artist. Mr. Cole said you've studied her. What does she wear? How does she present? Designer labels, but older pieces. Everything calculated to look effortless, but probably planned weeks in advance. She uses appearance as a weapon. So we dress you as someone who doesn't need appearance as a weapon. Someone whose power is quieter. Diane held up a dress in deep navy. Try this. The fitting took 2 hours. Diane was exacting, particular, adjusting hemlines and necklines, with the precision of someone who understood that clothes were armor. Maya stood in front of mirrors that showed her a version of herself she barely recognized. You look uncomfortable, Diane observed. I look expensive. You look like you belong. There's a difference. Diane adjusted the dress's shoulder. The trick isn't pretending to be wealthy. It's acting like wealth is so normal, you don't think about it. Can you do that? Maya thought about all the years watching rich people at Aurelius, learning their patterns, their tells, their casual arrogance that came from never being questioned. Yes, she said, I can do that. By the time she left the boutique, she had a dress, shoes that were surprisingly comfortable, and a small clutch that probably cost more than her security deposit. The car took her back to her apartment, where she discovered Ethan had also sent a makeup artist and hairstylist. This is insane, Maya told the mirror. This is preparation, the makeup artist corrected, already studying Maya's face with professional intensity. Mr. Cole wants you to look the part. We're here to make that happen. 2 hours later, Maya stared at her reflection and barely recognized herself. The transformation wasn't dramatic, no heavy makeup or elaborate hair. Instead, it was subtle, refined, the kind of polish that whispered old money rather than screaming new wealth. Perfect, the stylist said. Now you look like someone who's always belonged. Ethan's car arrived at 7. This time he was inside wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her first car. He looked up as she slid in beside him, and something flickered across his face. You look out of my depth? Dangerous, he finished, in a good way. The drive to the Metropolitan Club took 20 minutes through evening traffic. Ethan spent most of it on his phone, coordinating with people Maya couldn't see. She caught fragments of conversation. Lawyers, security, someone named Jennifer, who seemed to be managing crisis communications. Second thoughts? Ethan asked when he finally put the phone down. Third and fourth thoughts. But I'm still here. Why? You could have walked away. Should have walked away. Maya considered the question. Why was she doing this? Revenge against Vivian for being cruel? Justice for the men she'd scammed? Some misguided white knight complex? When I was 14, she said slowly, I had a foster mother who stole my birthday money. $200 my aunt had sent. The only family I had left, and this woman took it to buy cigarettes and scratch tickets. Maya looked out at the passing city. I reported it. Caseworker didn't believe me, said I was causing trouble. I got moved to a worse home as punishment for speaking up. That's horrific. That's normal. That's what happens when you're powerless. The people with authority protect each other, and you get crushed for trying to tell the truth. She turned to face him. So maybe I'm doing this because someone should have believed me. Because someone should have listened when I said something was wrong. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. I believe you. For what it's worth. It's worth a lot, actually. The Metropolitan Club rose before them like a monument to old New York money. Marble columns, brass fixtures, the kind of establishment that had been hosting the wealthy since before income taxes existed. A red carpet led to the entrance, flanked by photographers waiting to capture the evening's attendees. Maya's stomach dropped. I didn't realize there would be press. Charity gala. They always have press. Ethan straightened his bow tie. Stay close to me. Don't talk to reporters unless I indicate it's okay. If anyone asks who you are, you're a consultant working with my company, which is technically true. Consulting on what? Risk assessment. Also technically true. The car pulled to a stop. A valet opened the door and suddenly they were stepping out into camera flashes and murmured speculation. Ethan's hand found the small of her back, proprietary but professional, guiding her past the photographers who were calling his name. Mr. Cole, who's your date? Ethan, are you and Vivian Clark still together? Is this business or pleasure? He ignored all of them with the practiced ease of someone who'd learned that responding only encouraged more questions. They swept through the entrance and into a world Maya had only seen from the service side. The club's grand ballroom was stunning in that understated way only old money could achieve. Crystal chandeliers that were probably original, artwork that belonged in museums, tables set with china that had likely been in the club's collection for a century. And everywhere, the beautiful people of Manhattan's elite, glittering and dangerous as broken glass. There she is, Ethan murmured. Maya followed his gaze to find Vivian holding court near the bar, surrounded by men in tuxedos who hung on her every word. She wore red tonight, bold, dramatic, designed to be the center of attention. And she was. People orbited her like she was the sun. She doesn't know you're here, Maya said. No, I told her I couldn't make it. Business emergency. Ethan's jaw was tight. She was disappointed but understanding. Said she'd represent us both. Has she seen you yet? Not yet, but she will. As if summoned by their attention, Vivian's gaze swept the room and landed on Ethan. For just a moment, less than a second, her composure cracked. Surprise. Maybe concern. Then the mask was back, and she was smiling, excusing herself from her admirers, gliding across the floor toward them. Ethan, I thought you couldn't make it. Her voice was warm, delighted, perfect. Then her eyes landed on Maya, and the warmth cooled several degrees. And you brought the waitress. How unexpected. Maya was kind enough to accompany me on short notice, Ethan said smoothly. You remember her from Aurelius. How could I forget? Vivian's smile was razor sharp. Though I'm surprised to see her in guest clothing rather than an apron. Did you get lost looking for the service entrance? I found exactly what I was looking for, Maya said quietly. Sometimes things aren't where you expect them to be. The double meaning wasn't subtle. Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly, reassessing, realizing perhaps that the timid waitress had claws. Well, isn't this cozy? The three of us. Vivian looped her arm through Ethan's, asserting ownership. Ethan, darling, there are some people you simply must meet. Major donors, very important for your... Actually, I need to speak with you privately. Ethan's tone was harder now, less performative. About something urgent. Here? Now? Yes, here, now. Something dangerous flickered in Vivian's expression before she smoothed it away. Of course. Anything for you. She glanced at Maya. Do you mind waiting here? Unless you'd prefer to find the kitchen. I'm sure they need help. I'm fine right where I am, Maya said. Ethan and Vivian moved away toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. Maya watched them go, her heart hammering. This was it. The moment everything either came together or fell spectacularly apart. Champagne? A waiter appeared at her elbow with a tray. Thank you. Maya took a glass she had no intention of drinking, props for nervous hands. You're here with Ethan Cole. The voice came from her left, a woman in her 60s wearing diamonds that could fund a small country. I'm Margaret Ashford. I sit on the board of his company. Oh no. Maya Reed, nice to meet you. You're very young to be dating someone like Ethan. We're not dating. I'm consulting for his company. On what? You look barely old enough to have graduated college. Maya felt the familiar flush of being underestimated. But instead of shrinking away, she channeled every wealthy person she'd ever observed at Aurelius. Risk assessment. I have particular insight into pattern recognition and threat evaluation. How fascinating. Margaret's tone suggested it was anything but. And what threats have you identified? Before Maya could answer, raised voices cut through the ambient party noise. Ethan and Vivian, their private conversation no longer so private. People were starting to notice. You're being ridiculous, Vivian's voice carried across the ballroom. I don't know what that waitress told you, but her name is Maya, and she told me the truth, which is more than you've done since we met. The room was quieting now, conversations trailing off as people turned to watch. This was better than any entertainment the gala could have planned. Real drama, unfolding in real time. Excuse me, Maya murmured to Margaret, moving closer to where Ethan and Vivian stood. She needed to be near when this broke open, needed to see Vivian's face when the walls came down. I have been nothing but honest with you, Vivian was saying, her voice tight with controlled fury. If you're going to believe some nobody server over me, then maybe we need to reevaluate this entire relationship. Show me your ID, Ethan said flatly. What? Your identification, driver's license, passport, social security card. Show me any of them. Vivian's laugh was brittle. This is absurd. You're making a scene. Then make it easy. Prove me wrong. Show everyone here who you really are. The silence in the ballroom was complete now. 100 wealthy people watching one of their own get called out. This was the kind of spectacle they'd gossip about for months. Vivian's composure was fracturing. I don't have to prove anything to you. Because you can't. Ethan's voice was carrying now, projecting to the entire room. Because Vivian Clark doesn't exist. Not really. You're Victoria Chen from San Francisco. Veronica Castellano from Miami. Valentina Cross from... Stop, Vivian's voice cracked. Just stop. Why? Embarrassed? Worried someone here might recognize one of your other names? Ethan pulled something from his jacket pocket, printouts of the fake IDs Maya had found. How many men have you done this to? How many lives have you destroyed? Vivian's eyes were wild now, scanning the room, looking for exits, for options, for any way out of the trap that was closing around her. Her gaze landed on Maya, standing at the edge of the crowd. Understanding dawned, cold and furious. You, Vivian hissed. You did this. You little... She lunged. It wasn't graceful, wasn't calculated. Pure animal panic, rage, and desperation combined. Her hand caught Maya's shoulder, nails digging in, and Maya stumbled backward. Someone screamed. The champagne glass fell from Maya's hand and shattered, red wine spreading across white marble like blood. Like the opening hook had promised. Full circle. Security was moving in, but Vivian was faster. She grabbed Maya by the arm, spinning her around, and for a moment they were face to face. Close enough for Maya to see the ruin in her eyes, the collapse of all those careful personas. Who are you? Vivian demanded. Really, what are you? Maya could have stayed silent, could have let security pull Vivian away. But something in her needed this moment, needed Vivian to understand. I'm the one you didn't see coming, Maya said quietly, because people like you never do. Then security was there, hands on Vivian's arms, pulling her back. She was screaming now, all pretense of sophistication gone, screaming about conspiracies and lies and setups, making everything worse with every word. Ethan appeared at Maya's side. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Maya rubbed her shoulder where Vivian's nails had dug in. Did we? Yes. His voice was grim but satisfied. Look. Maya followed his gaze to find several guests holding up their phones, recording, photographing, documenting everything. By morning, this would be all over social media, the news, everywhere. Vivian Clark's carefully constructed world was burning down in real time, and everyone was watching. Two men in suits that screamed federal agent appeared at the club's entrance. Ethan had called them, Maya realized. Had the authorities on standby waiting for this exact moment. This hadn't just been about exposure, it had been about ensuring Vivian couldn't disappear again. Veronica Castellano? One of the agents approached, voice calm and official. Also known as Victoria Chen and Valentina Cross? You're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and interstate transportation of stolen property. Vivian had stopped screaming. She stood there, surrounded by security and agents and the watching elite, looking small suddenly, diminished. Just a woman who'd run out of escape routes. Ethan, she said, and her voice was different now. Raw. Maybe real for the first time since they'd met. Please, don't do this. I can explain everything. No, he said simply. You can't. They led her away through a side exit, sparing the gala guests the spectacle of handcuffs and police cars. But the damage was done. The story was out. The lies were exposed. The room erupted in conversation, everyone talking at once, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Maya felt disconnected from it all, like she was watching through thick glass. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and slightly nauseous. I need air, she managed. Ethan guided her out to a balcony that overlooked Central Park. The night air was cold, sharp, exactly what she needed to cut through the surreal fog. You did it, he said. You saved me. My company. My daughter. We did it. Together. Maya leaned against the railing, trying to steady her breathing. Is it always like that? When someone's life falls apart? I don't know. I've never destroyed anyone before. Neither have I. Maya looked down at her hands. They were shaking slightly. I thought it would feel better. More like justice. What does it feel like? Necessary, but not good. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the park lights twinkle below. Inside, the gala was probably dissolving into chaos. Tomorrow, the news cycle would explode. But right now, out here, it was just quiet. What happens now? Maya asked finally. Now the lawyers handle everything. The investigation, the charges, recovering whatever can be recovered. Ethan turned to face her. And I figure out what to do with a very talented woman who just proved she's capable of things I didn't know were possible. I'm a waitress. You were a waitress. I'm not sure what you are now. Neither was Maya. The invisible girl who'd learned to disappear had just done the opposite, had stepped into the spotlight and brought down someone who'd thought they were untouchable, had proven that power came in forms the powerful never expected. "Your daughter," Maya said. "Emma. You should call her. Let her know you're okay." Something in Ethan's expression softened. "She's staying with her grandmother tonight, but yes, I should call." He pulled out his phone, stepping away to make the call. Maya watched him, seeing the way his shoulders relaxed when Emma's voice came through. The way he smiled when he said, "The villain is gone, sweetheart. You don't have to worry anymore." When he hung up, he looked younger, less exhausted, like a weight had lifted. "She says thank you," he told Maya, "for protecting her dad. She doesn't even know me. She knows enough." He moved closer. "Come work for me. Real work, not consulting fiction. I need someone who sees what others miss. Someone who isn't afraid to speak up when something's wrong. I don't have a degree. No real experience outside of service industry. You have something better. You have instinct and courage and the ability to read people like books." He was serious now, intent. "I'm building something important, something that matters. I need people I can trust. People who will tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable." Maya thought about her tiny apartment, her job at Aurelius, the life she'd built on being invisible. It was safe, familiar, everything she'd known for years. It was also small, limited, a box she'd built to protect herself that had become a prison. "I don't know how to be visible," she admitted. "I've spent my entire life learning how to disappear." "Then maybe it's time to learn something new." Inside, someone was calling Ethan's name, probably Margaret Ashford or another board member wanting to discuss the evening's drama. The real world, pressing back in. "I need to go deal with this," Ethan said, "but think about my offer. Take whatever time you need. Just think about it." He went back inside, leaving Maya alone on the balcony. She looked down at the dress she was wearing, the expensive shoes, the version of herself that had walked into this gala and set a trap that worked. Who was this person? Not the Maya who served tables and kept her head down. Someone else. Someone who'd made a choice to step forward instead of back. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, checking in after her supposed family emergency. "You okay? Need anything?" She should tell him she was fine, make up more lies to maintain the fiction. Instead, she typed the truth. "Something happened tonight. Something big. I'll explain tomorrow, but I think my life just changed." His response came immediately. "Good change or bad change?" Maya looked out at the Manhattan skyline, glittering with possibilities she'd never let herself consider before. Thought about Vivian in handcuffs. Ethan on the phone with his daughter. The invisible waitress who'd stepped into power and found it fit better than she'd expected. "Good," she typed back. Definitely good. She didn't know what came next, didn't have a plan beyond getting through tomorrow. But for the first time in years, she felt something other than the quiet desperation of just surviving. She felt alive. Inside the ballroom, someone had turned the music back on. The party was recovering, adapting, already turning tonight's drama into the kind of story they'd tell at future events. Life continued, it always did. Maya took one last breath of cold air, squared her shoulders, and walked back inside. Not as the invisible girl. As someone who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was refuse to disappear when people tried to erase you. The gala continued around her. People stared, whispered. Some brave souls approached with questions she deflected with practiced ease. The skills from years of service work repurposed, keeping boundaries, managing expectations, staying in control. Margaret Ashford found her near the dessert table. That was quite the performance. It wasn't a performance. It was evidence. Same thing in our world. Margaret studied her with new interest. "Ethan's offered you a position, hasn't he?" "How did you—" "Because I know how he operates. He finds talent in unexpected places, values loyalty over credentials." She paused. "Take the job. Someone like you who sees the angles others miss, you'll do well." "You don't even know me." I know you brought down a con artist who was working her way through Manhattan's wealthiest men. I know you did it without making yourself the story. That takes intelligence and restraint." Margaret handed Maya her card. "When you're ready to navigate corporate politics, call me. You'll need a guide." She walked away, leaving Maya holding a business card that probably represented more connections than she'd made in her entire life. The evening wound down eventually. Guests departed, whispering among themselves about the scandal they'd witnessed. Vivian's name would be poisoned now. Her face would be everywhere, attached to warnings and exposés. The destruction was complete. Ethan found Maya as the last guests were leaving. "Come on, I'll give you a ride home." In the car, they sat in comfortable silence, processing, recovering, coming down from the adrenaline high of a plan that had actually worked. "Thank you," Ethan said, finally. "I know I already said it, but I mean it. Thank you for giving me back my life." "You're welcome." Maya looked out at the passing city. "And thank you for showing me I could be more than invisible." "You were never invisible. You just made everyone think you were. There's a difference." Maybe there was. Maybe Maya Reed, the girl who'd learned to disappear as survival, had always been someone else underneath. Someone who was tired of hiding, tired of being underestimated, tired of watching people like Vivian move through the world, taking what they wanted while people like her cleaned up the mess. The car pulled up to her building in Washington Heights. Ethan looked at it. The tired facade, the security gate that barely worked, the neighborhood that was gentrifying but not there yet, and didn't comment, just saw it, acknowledged it. "Think about my offer," he said. "No pressure. But I meant what I said. You have a gift. It would be a shame to waste it serving people who can't see what you're worth." "I'll think about it," Maya promised. She rode the elevator to her floor, let herself into her tiny apartment, and finally, took off the expensive shoes that had carried her through the most surreal night of her life. In the bathroom mirror, she studied her reflection. The makeup was smudged now, the hair coming down. But underneath, she could still see it. The person who'd looked Vivian in the eye and refused to back down. The person who'd helped bring justice to someone who thought they were above it. She was still there, still real. Maya Reed had stepped out of the shadows, and she wasn't going back. Morning came too fast and too bright, sunlight cutting through the cheap blinds Maya had been meaning to replace for 2 years. Her phone was already buzzing before she'd fully opened her eyes. Text messages. Missed calls, the world demanding her attention in ways it never had before. The first message was from Marcus, sent at 6 a.m. "Maya, you're all over the news. Call me." She sat up, heart already racing, and opened her news app. The top story hit her like cold water. Billionaire Ethan Cole exposes con artist at charity gala. Below it, a photo. Vivian being led away by federal agents, her face a mask of rage and ruin. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible but definitely there, Maya, standing beside Ethan, wearing that navy dress and an expression of grim satisfaction. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Miss Reed, this is Amanda Chen from the New York Times. I was hoping to get a statement about your involvement in last night's events at the Metropolitan Club." Maya hung up without responding. Her hands were shaking. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. "Maya Reed? Channel 7 News. We'd love to have you on." She hung up again, then turned off her phone completely. In the sudden silence of her apartment, reality crashed down. She'd wanted Vivian exposed, had wanted justice, consequences, the whole spectacular fall from grace. But she hadn't really thought about what came after, hadn't considered that stepping into the spotlight meant everyone could see you. And everyone was looking now. A knock on her door made her jump. She checked the peephole and found Marcus, holding 2 coffees and wearing an expression of barely contained panic. "Let me in," he called, "before the reporters figure out which building is yours." Maya opened the door. "Reporters?" "There's a van downstairs, news crew setting up." "Maya, what the hell happened last night?" She took one of the coffees and sat on her secondhand couch, trying to organize thoughts that felt scattered across too many directions. "I helped expose a criminal, and apparently became a story in the process." "You think?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her screen after screen. Social media was exploding. Photos from the gala, speculation about who Maya was. Some calling her a hero, others questioning her motives, a few suggesting she was Ethan's new girlfriend capitalizing on drama. "This is a nightmare," Maya said quietly. "Or an opportunity. Depends on how you look at it." Marcus sat beside her. "Talk to me. Real talk. What actually happened?" So Maya told him. All of it. Finding the IDs, the late-night diner meeting with Ethan, the plan to expose Vivian publicly. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and something that might have been pride. "You're insane," he said when she finished. "You know that, right? Completely insane." "Probably." "Also kind of amazing, like terrifyingly competent in a way I didn't know you were capable of." He paused. "What happens now?" "I don't know. Ethan offered me a job, real job, not consulting fiction, but I don't know if I can do it, if I'm built for that world. As opposed to being built for getting screamed at by entitled customers for 8 hours a shift." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Maya, you just took down a professional con artist. I think you can handle corporate politics." "That's different." "How?" I was reacting, responding to something wrong. This would be choosing to step into a world I don't understand, where people like Margaret Ashford casually wear diamonds worth more than I'll make in my lifetime. "So learn, adapt. You're good at that." Marcus took her hand. "I've known you 3 years. You're the smartest person at Aurelius, maybe the smartest person I know. And you've been hiding it because it felt safer, but safe isn't the same as happy." "I never said I was unhappy." "You never said you were happy either." That landed harder than Maya expected. She stared into her coffee, seeing her distorted reflection in the dark surface. Her phone, still powered off, sat on the counter like an unexploded bomb. When she turned it back on, there would be more calls, more questions, more demands from a world that suddenly wanted pieces of her she'd never offered before. "I need to talk to Jean-Pierre," she said finally. "Tell him the truth, or at least enough of it. He's going to lose his mind." "Probably, but I can't just disappear. I owe him that much." She turned her phone back on and immediately regretted it. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, her voicemail box full. The modern world's version of a mob at the gates. One message stood out, though. From Ethan, sent an hour ago. "I know this is overwhelming. Take the day, take the week. But when you're ready, call me. We need to talk about next steps. And Maya, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how public this would become. That's on me." There was something else, too. A calendar invitation for tomorrow afternoon. Meeting with legal team re NDA and non-disparagement agreements. Legal teams. NDAs. The machinery of wealth protecting itself even as it cleaned up the mess. Maya felt a flash of anger. Was this what happened next? Sign away her right to talk about any of it? Become another secret the powerful kept? "What?" Marcus asked, reading her expression. "Ethan wants me to meet with lawyers, sign agreements about not talking to press." "Well, yeah, that makes sense. Protect everyone involved. Or silence the person who might say something inconvenient." Marcus frowned. "You don't really think—" "I don't know what I think. 24 hours ago I was a waitress. Now I'm apparently some kind of vigilante hero with lawyers and news vans and job offers from billionaires." Maya stood up, pacing the small apartment. "What if this is all just another performance? What if I'm being managed?" "Then don't sign. Walk away. Go back to Aurelius." Marcus's voice was calm. "But I think you're scared and looking for reasons to run, which I get. But don't confuse fear with intuition." He was right. Maya hated that he was right. Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number, Jean-Pierre. "I'm assuming you've seen the news," he said without preamble. "Yes." "My office, 2 hours. We need to discuss your employment status." He hung up before she could respond. "That sounded ominous," Marcus observed. "That was him being polite. The real conversation will be worse." Maya grabbed her jacket. "I should go. Face this before it gets uglier." "Want me to come with?" "No. This one I need to do alone." The subway ride to Aurelius felt surreal. People stared at her, and she couldn't tell if it was recognition or paranoia. Did strangers actually know her face from a few news photos? Or was she just hyper-aware of attention she'd spent years avoiding? The restaurant didn't open for lunch service for another hour, so Maya let herself in through the service entrance. The familiar smell of the kitchen, coffee, pastries, the industrial cleaner they used on floors, should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like visiting a museum of her old life. Jean-Pierre's office door was open. He looked up as she knocked, his expression carefully neutral. Close the door. Maya did, then sat in the chair across from his desk. The same chair where she'd sat 2 days ago, showing him Vivian's card holder, thinking she was doing the right thing. I want to understand, Jean-Pierre said carefully, how a waitress in my restaurant became involved in a federal investigation that's currently dominating every news cycle in the city. I found evidence of a crime and reported it. To me. You reported it to me. Then somehow you ended up at a charity gala confronting the suspect in front of Manhattan's elite and about a dozen cameras. It wasn't planned that way. Maya, his voice was sharp. Don't lie to me, not now. I've covered for you with corporate. Told them you had no idea this would become public, that you were an innocent bystander caught up in circumstances beyond your control. But we both know that's not true. The careful fiction she'd built was crumbling. Maya made a choice to let it fall. You're right. I didn't just find the IDs and forget about them. I researched Vivian, found out who she really was, met with Ethan Cole and helped him plan how to expose her. She met Jean-Pierre's gaze directly. I knew it would be public. That was the point. Make it impossible for her to disappear. Do you have any idea what you've done? The liability you've created for this restaurant, for me? She was a criminal. She was a customer. Our job is to serve customers, not investigate them, not pursue them, certainly not assist in their very public destruction. Jean-Pierre stood, agitated. I have lawyers calling, corporate demanding answers, board members canceling reservations because they're worried about their privacy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. What did you mean to do, Maya? Seriously, what was the end game here? Justice, Maya said quietly. She was destroying people's lives, stealing everything they had. Someone needed to stop her. Someone, not you. You're not law enforcement, not a private investigator. You're a waitress who had no business getting involved in something this dangerous. A waitress, Maya repeated. The word tasted bitter. Is that all I am? Someone who carries plates and keeps her mouth shut when she sees something wrong? That's the job. That's what you signed up for. Maybe I'm tired of that job. The silence that followed was heavy with everything unsaid. Jean-Pierre sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. Ethan Cole offered you a position, he said finally. Not a question. How did you know? Because I've been in this industry 30 years. I know how these people operate. They see talent and they take it. Never mind the contracts or loyalty or the people left behind picking up pieces. He rubbed his face. Are you going to accept? Maya wanted to say no, wanted to promise she'd stay, that everything would go back to normal. But normal had shattered, and pretending otherwise was pointless. I don't know yet. When you do know, I need 2 weeks' notice. Professional courtesy. Can you give me that much? Of course. Good. Now get out of here. You're not scheduled today anyway, and I have enough to deal with without you lurking around reminding everyone of this mess. Maya stood, feeling like she'd lost something she couldn't quite name. Jean-Pierre, go, Maya, before I say something we'll both regret. She left his office and walked through the empty dining room one last time. Table 7, where this had all started, was already set for tonight's service. Crystal gleaming, silverware perfectly aligned, everything ready for the next performance of wealth and power. She'd served here for 3 years, had learned the rhythms of this place, the hierarchy, the unspoken rules. How to be invisible when needed and present when required. But standing here now, she felt like a stranger, like she'd outgrown the space without realizing it. Outside, the news van was still parked across the street. A reporter spotted her and started forward, cameraman in tow. Miss Reed, just a few questions. Maya turned and walked the other direction, fast enough to discourage pursuit, but not so fast it looked like running. She'd learned that trick in foster care, too. How to exit situations without making them worse. She ended up in Central Park, sitting on a bench near the reservoir, watching joggers and dog walkers live their normal lives. Her phone buzzed constantly, but she ignored it. Let the world wait. She needed to think. What did she actually want? Not what she thought she should want, or what made sense, or what was safe. What did Maya Reed, 30 years old and standing at a crossroads she'd never expected, actually want her life to be? A shadow fell across her. She looked up to find Margaret Ashford, of all people, wearing exercise clothes that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. Mind if I sit? Margaret asked, already sitting. I don't think I get to say no to board members. Former board members. I resigned this morning. Margaret smiled at Maya's shocked expression. Ethan and I have been disagreeing about company direction for months. Last night was the final straw, but that's not why I'm here. Why are you here? Because I've been watching you. Last night at the gala, this morning in the news coverage, your whole careful approach to a situation that could have destroyed you. Margaret pulled out her phone, showing Maya an article. Have you seen this? It was an op-ed from a business magazine. The headline read, "The Invisible Workforce, How a Waitress Saw What Billionaires Missed." I don't want to read it, Maya said. You should. It's actually quite good. Talks about how people in service positions often have better intelligence than anyone in the boardroom because they're present but ignored. How you leveraged that position to protect someone who never even thought to protect himself. Margaret put the phone away. The author wants to interview you. Everyone wants to interview me. I'm not interested in being a story. Even if the story could help people, other women in service industries who see things but don't speak up because they think no one will listen? That hit different. Maya hadn't thought about it that way, hadn't considered that her actions might matter beyond this specific situation. I don't know what to say, Maya admitted. I'm not inspirational. I'm just someone who got angry and acted on it. That's exactly what makes it powerful. You weren't trying to be a hero. You were trying to do the right thing. Those are the stories that matter. Margaret stood, brushing off her expensive leggings. Think about it. And call me when you're ready to talk about what comes next. Because Maya, whether you realize it or not, you've already started something. The question is whether you're going to finish it. She walked away, leaving Maya alone with thoughts that wouldn't stop spinning. Her phone rang again. This time it was Ethan. I saw you left Aurelius, he said when she answered. How did it go with Jean-Pierre? About as well as expected. How are you tracking my movements? Security cameras outside the restaurant. I wanted to make sure no reporters harassed you. He paused. That sounds creepier than intended. I'm just trying to help. By watching me? By making sure you're safe. Last night was intense. The blowback is going to be worse before it gets better. I know this world, Maya. You don't. Not yet. Maybe I don't want to know it. Is that what you're thinking? Walking away from all of this? Maya watched a child chase pigeons, laughing when they scattered. Simple joy. Uncomplicated. I'm thinking that 24 hours ago I had a quiet life. Now I'm being followed by news vans and job offers and lawyers wanting me to sign NDAs. It's a lot. It is. And I'm sorry for my part in making it overwhelming. But Maya, you can't go back to invisible. That option doesn't exist anymore. The question is what you do with visibility. Spoken like someone who's never had to fight for anonymity. Fair point. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Can I show you something? Tomorrow, before the legal meeting, it might help you understand what I'm actually offering. What is it? A day in the life. My world, unfiltered, good parts and bad parts. Then you can make an informed decision about whether you want any part of it. Maya should say no, should maintain distance, should think about this rationally instead of getting pulled deeper into a life she didn't understand. Okay, she heard herself say. Tomorrow. Show me. They agreed on a time and ended the call. Maya sat on the bench a while longer, watching the park slowly fill with people living their ordinary days. She used to be one of them. Anonymous, safe, small. She couldn't remember when that had started feeling like a cage instead of shelter. That evening, back in her apartment, Maya finally read the article Margaret had mentioned. It was thoughtful, nuanced, treating her like someone with agency instead of either a victim or a vigilante. The comment section was predictably chaotic, half calling her brave, half calling her a social climber, everyone having opinions about a person they didn't actually know. Welcome to visibility. Marcus came by with takeout and moral support. They ate lo mein on her couch while Maya tried to explain feelings she couldn't quite articulate. I keep waiting to feel like I made the right choice, she said, but mostly I just feel unsettled. Maybe because you haven't actually made a choice yet. You're in limbo. That's always the worst part. When did you get wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too busy being competent to notice. Marcus pointed his chopsticks at her. Real talk, though. What do you want? Not what makes sense or what's safe. What do you actually want? Maya thought about the question, really thought about it. I want to matter, she said finally. I want what I do to mean something beyond just surviving another shift. I want... She stopped, surprised by the emotion in her voice. I want to be seen, actually seen. Not just as someone who serves or helps or facilitates, as someone who matters in my own right. Then take the job. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're making it complicated because you're scared, which is valid. But don't pretend the choice is hard when you already know what you want. He was right. Maya hated that he was right. After Marcus left, she stood at her window looking out at Washington Heights, the neighborhood where she'd lived for 5 years, where she'd built a small, safe life, where she'd been content, or at least convinced herself she was. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Emma. Dad gave me your number. Thank you for saving him. Can you come to dinner sometime? I want to meet you properly, not just at boring grown-up events. Maya stared at the message. A 7-year-old who wanted to thank her, who thought she was worth knowing. She texted back, I'd like that. Emma's response was immediate. Good. Dad says you're really smart and brave. Are you going to work with us? Simple question from a child who didn't understand the weight it carried. Maya started typing several different responses, deleting each one. Finally settled on, I'm thinking about it. You should. We need smart people. Dad's smart, but he misses things sometimes, like bad guys pretending to be nice. Maya smiled despite herself. Your dad is learning. Because of you. That's what makes you important. Out of the mouths of children. Maya set down her phone and made a decision. Tomorrow she'd see Ethan's world, really see it, and then she'd decide if it was somewhere she belonged. But tonight, sitting in her apartment with the lights of Washington Heights glittering below, Maya allowed herself to feel something she'd kept buried for years. Hope. Maybe she could be more than invisible. Maybe she could matter. Maybe the girl who'd learned to disappear could learn to stand in the light without burning up. She'd find out soon enough. The night stretched out before her, full of possibility and terror in equal measure. Maya Reed, waitress and con artist hunter, stood at the edge of something that looked like a future. All she had to do was decide if she was brave enough to step into it. The car picked Maya up at 9 a.m. sharp, the kind of punctuality that came from having drivers on staff rather than relying on the chaos of ride-sharing apps. She'd dressed carefully, not the borrowed gala dress, but her own clothes, a simple blazer over dark jeans. Presentable, but authentic. If Ethan wanted to show her his real world, she'd show him her real self. The driver took her to an address in Tribeca she recognized from business magazines. Cole Technologies headquarters, a converted warehouse that had probably cost more to renovate than the original building was worth. All exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of space that screamed innovation and disruption in equal measure. Ethan met her in the lobby, wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, but looked casual enough to be normal. He seemed more relaxed here than he'd been at the restaurant or the gala. This was his territory. Thank you for coming, he said. I know this is probably the last place you want to be. Actually, I'm curious. Your world is very different from mine. That's what I wanted to show you. Come on. He led her through security, biometric scanners, badge readers, the whole 9 yards, and into an elevator that climbed silently to the top floor. The doors opened onto an open office space that somehow managed to feel both massive and intimate. Workstations scattered throughout, collaborative spaces with whiteboards covered in diagrams Maya couldn't begin to understand. And everywhere, people. Young, intense, focused people who looked up as Ethan passed and immediately returned to whatever problem they were solving. This is the Nerve Center, Ethan explained, where we develop new software solutions for financial institutions. Very boring, very necessary, very profitable. Doesn't sound boring. Wait until you sit through a meeting about blockchain integration protocols. You'll change your mind. He guided her past the workstations to a glass-walled conference room where several people were already waiting. Maya recognized the setup immediately. This was the legal meeting, the NDAs, the moment where she either committed or walked away. Before we start, Ethan said, stopping outside the conference room, I want you to understand something. These lawyers work for the company, not for you. Anything you sign protects the business first. If you want your own representation, I'll pay for it. No strings. That surprised her. Why would you do that? Because what happened at the gala put you in a vulnerable position you didn't ask for. You deserve protection too, not just my company. He met her eyes directly. I'm offering you a job, Maya, but I'm not trying to trap you. If the terms aren't fair, say so. We'll negotiate. It was the first time someone with power had offered her equal footing rather than demanding gratitude. Maya filed that away, evidence that maybe, possibly, this could work. The meeting lasted 2 hours. The lawyers presented documents that Maya read carefully, asking questions when language seemed deliberately obscure. The NDAs were extensive but not unreasonable. She couldn't discuss proprietary company information or details about Ethan's personal life, but she could talk about Vivian's exposure, could do interviews if she chose, could tell her own story. This clause here, Maya pointed to a section near the end. It says, I can't disparage the company or its leadership. What counts as disparagement? The lead attorney, a woman named Patricia with steel gray hair and sharper eyes, smiled slightly. Good catch. That language is standard but vague. We can tighten it to mean demonstrable lies or malicious falsehoods. Honest criticism wouldn't qualify. And if I leave the company, does this follow me? Only the confidentiality portions. Non-disparagement expires upon termination of employment. They went back and forth, Maya asking questions she'd learned from years of reading contracts at Aurelius. Employee handbooks, vendor agreements, anything she could get her hands on to understand how these worlds worked. The lawyers seemed impressed, or at least surprised. Finally, Patricia pushed the revised documents across the table. We've addressed your concerns. This protects both parties fairly. But Miss Reed, you should know, Ethan insisted on several clauses that benefit you specifically. The termination terms, the equity options, the education reimbursement, those aren't standard. Maya looked at Ethan, who was studying his phone with perhaps too much concentration. Why? Because you're taking a risk on us. Fair compensation for risk. He looked up. And because people who see things others miss are rare. I don't want to lose that because of bad contract terms. Maya signed. The pen felt heavy, significant, like she was writing herself into a different story. After the lawyers left, Ethan walked her through the rest of the building, showed her the product development labs where engineers argued passionately about code architecture, the break room where someone had built an elaborate coffee station that rivaled anything at a specialty cafe, the rooftop deck with views of the Hudson River where employees took calls or just sat thinking. This is what I built, Ethan said, leaning against the railing. Not just a company, a place where people can do good work without being crushed by it, where innovation matters more than politics. At least that's the goal. Doesn't always work perfectly. Nothing ever does? No. But we try. He turned to face her. The position I'm offering is new, Director of Strategic Intelligence. Essentially, you'd be my early warning system. Look at deals, partnerships, people we're considering working with. Tell me what I'm missing, what my blind spots are preventing me from seeing. That's incredibly vague. It's incredibly important. I almost lost everything because I was too distracted to see a con artist standing right in front of me. That can't happen again. I need someone whose job is to see what I miss. And you trust me to do that? You barely know me. I know you saw through Vivian when everyone else was charmed. I know you risked your job to report evidence you could have ignored. I know you helped me without asking for anything in return. Ethan's expression was serious. I know enough. Maya looked out at the city sprawling below them. From here, Manhattan looked manageable, ordered. Like all its chaos had a pattern, if you could just see it from the right angle. What about your board? Margaret Ashford resigned because of me. Margaret resigned because she disagreed with company direction and used you as an excuse. The rest of the board is cautiously supportive. They see the value in threat assessment. And your daughter? That made Ethan smile. Emma can't wait to meet you properly. She's been asking every day when you're coming to dinner. Fair warning, she's 7 and has absolutely no filter. You'll be interrogated. I can handle 7-year-olds. I was one once. Were you this scary at 7? Scarier. I just lost my parents and was very angry at the world. The honesty surprised them both. Maya usually kept that part of her history buried deep. But something about this moment, standing on a rooftop with a man who was offering her a future she'd never imagined, made pretense feel pointless. I was 9 when my father left, Ethan said quietly. Just walked out one day. My mother raised me and my sister alone, working 3 jobs. I built this company partly to prove he made a mistake leaving us, partly to make sure my own daughter never wonders if she's enough to make me stay. That's a heavy burden to put on a company. It's a heavy burden to put on yourself. But we all carry something. He pushed off from the railing. Come on, there's someone I want you to meet. They took the elevator down to the 3rd floor, where the office aesthetic shifted from tech startup to something more traditional. Ethan knocked on a door marked Chief Operating Officer and entered without waiting for response. The woman behind the desk looked up with the kind of exasperated fondness that suggested this interruption was routine. She was black, maybe 50, with natural hair and reading glasses perched on her head. Ethan, you know knocking is supposed to be followed by waiting for permission to enter, right? This is Maya Reed. Maya, Joanne Harrison, the person who actually runs this company while I take credit. Joanne stood, extending a hand. Don't believe him. He works harder than anyone here, including me, though I do keep everything from falling apart when he's distracted by shiny new ideas. Maya's starting as Director of Strategic Intelligence, Ethan said. The con artist hunter. Joanne studied Maya with sharp interest. I read about what you did. Impressive. Also reckless. We'll need to channel that energy productively. I don't hunt con artists professionally. That was one time. That we know of. Who knows what you did in your mysterious waitress past? Joanne's smile was warm despite the pointed words. Ethan has good instincts about people, usually. He also has terrible instincts about people sometimes. I'm here to figure out which category you fall into. Fair enough? Can you start Monday? The question caught Maya off guard. I haven't officially accepted yet. But you will, I can tell. You've got that look people get when they're trying to talk themselves out of something they already want. Joanne pulled out a tablet, already pulling up documents. HR will need your information. Insurance, direct deposit, emergency contacts, standard onboarding. Also, we'll need to get you a work wardrobe. No offense, but you can't meet with institutional clients in jeans. I have professional clothes. You have waitress professional. We need corporate professional. Different beast. Joanne looked at Ethan. Can we expense a clothing allowance? Already approved. Patricia included it in the contract. They were moving fast, making decisions, planning her future like it was already decided. Maya felt control slipping away, the careful autonomy she'd maintained for years dissolving into their efficient orchestration. Stop, she said firmly. Both Ethan and Joanne paused, looking at her. I appreciate everything you're doing, the job offer, the contract terms, the wardrobe allowance, but I need time to think, to process. This is my life we're discussing, and I'd like some agency in how it unfolds. Silence. Then Joanne laughed. I like her. She's got spine. Joanne closed her tablet. You're right. We're steamrolling you. Occupational hazard of working in tech. Everything moves too fast, and we forget people need breathing room. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Thank you. After they left Joanne's office, Ethan walked Maya back to the lobby. I'm sorry. We did exactly what you were afraid of. Tried to manage you instead of working with you. It's fine. I just needed to establish boundaries. That's a skill that'll serve you well here. People respect clear boundaries. He paused at the elevator. There's one more thing I wanted to show you, if you have time. Maya checked her phone. No pressing obligations, no shifts to work, just empty hours she'd planned to spend overthinking everything. Okay, show me. They took a different car this time, Ethan driving himself in a Tesla that was nice but not ostentatious. The route took them across the Brooklyn Bridge, through neighborhoods that were rapidly gentrifying, into areas where money was transforming old warehouses into expensive lofts. Where are we going? You'll see. He pulled up to a building that looked like it had been a factory once. Brick exterior, big windows, industrial aesthetic that developers loved. A sign out front read, Brooklyn Tech Initiative, opening fall 2026. Ethan led her inside through an unlocked side door. The space was still under construction, exposed wiring, unfinished drywall, the smell of fresh paint and sawdust. But Maya could see the vision. Workstations being installed, classroom spaces, computer labs. This is a training center, Ethan explained, for people who don't have traditional paths into tech careers. No degree required, no prior experience necessary, just aptitude and willingness to learn. You're funding this? funding, and running. Joanne's actually spearheading it. She came from nothing, taught herself to code at the public library, fought her way into this industry when it was even more hostile to women of color than it is now. This is her vision. I'm just providing resources. Maya walked through the unfinished space, imagining it full of people like her. People who'd been told they didn't belong in certain rooms, pursuing certain dreams. People who'd had to build their own paths because the traditional routes weren't available. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what we're building isn't just about profit. It's about creating opportunities for people who get overlooked. You were overlooked your entire life, Maya. People saw a waitress and stopped looking. Never saw the intelligence, the observation skills, the strategic thinking. He joined her by one of the windows overlooking the street. This place is about making sure fewer people get overlooked. And I thought maybe you'd want to be part of that. It was manipulation, in a way. Emotional appeal to her experiences, her values. Maya recognized the tactic, but recognition didn't make it less effective. When does it open? September. 6 months from now. We're hiring instructors, developing curriculum, partnering with companies willing to hire our graduates. Ethan turned to face her. I'd like you involved. Your perspective on what it's like to be invisible in professional spaces, that's valuable. That's something we need to build into how we teach people to navigate these worlds. I'm not a teacher. You don't have to teach, consult, advise. Share your experience so we can build something better. He paused. Or don't. The job offer doesn't depend on this. I'm just showing you the fuller picture of what the company does, what we're trying to do. Maya looked around the unfinished space and saw possibility. Saw people who might walk through these doors carrying the same weight she'd carried, feeling less than, feeling invisible, feeling like the world had decided their value before they'd had a chance to prove it. What if she could help change that, even for a few people? I need to meet your daughter, Maya said finally. Emma, before I decide anything, I need to meet her properly. Why? Because you're not just offering me a job. You're offering me access to your life, your family, the parts you protect most carefully. I need to know if I fit there, if she's comfortable with me, if this works beyond corporate structure. Ethan considered this, then nodded. Tonight, come to dinner. Just the three of us. No lawyers, no contracts, no pressure. Just dinner. They drove back to Manhattan in comfortable silence, Maya processing everything she'd seen. The company, the people. The vision Ethan was building that went beyond just making money. It was seductive, this idea that work could matter, that her skills could be used for something beyond just surviving another shift. But she'd learned young not to trust easy promises. People disappointed you. Systems failed. The only reliable thing was yourself. Ethan dropped her at her apartment with instructions for the evening. Casual dress. Emma's favorite food was pasta. Don't be surprised if she asks a million questions. Marcus was waiting on her stoop when she arrived, holding coffee and wearing his most judgmental expression. So, are you taking the job or what? I don't know, maybe, probably. Maya unlocked the building door. I'm having dinner with them tonight, Ethan and his daughter. That's not a job interview. That's meeting the family. It's research. I need to know what I'm getting into. Maya. Marcus followed her up the stairs. You're not good at lying to yourself. You've already decided. You're just scared to admit it. He wasn't wrong. Maya had felt the pull all day, the magnetic draw of possibility, a life that was more than just getting by. Work that mattered. People who saw her as something other than furniture. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I'm not smart enough or polished enough or whatever enough for that world? Then you fail. So what? You failed before. You're still here. This feels different, bigger. It is bigger. That's why it's worth doing. Maya changed clothes 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a simple sweater. Casual but neat. Herself, but a version that wouldn't scare a 7-year-old. The car came at 6. This time the drive took her to Tribeca, to a building that was definitely residential and definitely expensive. The lobby had a doorman who knew her name before she introduced herself. Money bought convenience. She was learning that. Ethan's apartment was on the top floor. Of course it was. And opened into a space that was beautiful but lived in. Toys scattered near a couch. Artwork at child height on the walls. A home, not a showpiece. You came! Emma appeared from somewhere, all energy and dark curls in her father's eyes. Dad said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come. I promised, didn't I? Adults don't always keep promises, but you seem like you do. Emma grabbed Maya's hand. Come see my room. I have a question about something. Ethan mouthed, sorry, as Emma dragged Maya down a hallway covered in framed children's drawings. The girl's room was exactly what Maya expected. Books everywhere, a telescope by the window, stuffed animals organized by species rather than cuteness. Dad says you used to be a waitress, but now you're going to help him catch bad people, Emma said, settling on her bed. Is that true? Sort of. I'm going to help him see things he might miss, make sure bad people don't trick him. Like Vivian. Yes, like Vivian. Emma was quiet for a moment, picking at her bedspread. I didn't like her. She smiled wrong, like she was pretending to be nice, but wasn't really. You have good instincts. Dad felt bad that he didn't see it. He said he was too lonely to think clearly. Emma looked up, serious beyond her years. Are you going to make him less lonely? The question was so direct it took Maya's breath away. I don't know. I'm going to try to be his friend. Help him with work. Is that okay with you? Will you be nice to him? Actually nice? Not pretend nice? I promise, actually nice. Okay then, you can stay. Emma hopped off the bed. Come on. I'm supposed to help with dinner. In the kitchen, Ethan was attempting pasta with mixed success. Emma took over with the confidence of a child who'd learned to help because her parent needed it. They worked together easily, a routine they'd clearly performed many times. Maya watched, feeling like an intruder on intimacy she had no right to witness. This was what she'd missed growing up, the casual domesticity of family. The unspoken rhythm of people who knew and loved each other. Stop hovering and set the table, Emma ordered. Plates are in that cabinet. So Maya set the table in a billionaire's apartment while his 7-year-old daughter directed her and he burned garlic bread. It was so absurdly normal she almost laughed. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Emma asked 1,000 questions about everything. Where Maya grew up, if she had siblings, what her favorite color was, whether she thought aliens were real. Ethan tried to moderate but gave up, letting his daughter's curiosity run wild. Emma, he said finally, let Maya eat. She can eat and talk. I do it all the time. You also spill constantly. Only sometimes. Emma turned back to Maya. Do you want kids? Dad says I'm enough kid for 10 people, but I think maybe a brother would be nice. Emma! Ethan looked mortified. What? It's just a question. Maya laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in days. I haven't thought about it much, but if I did, I'd hope they were as smart and curious as you. Emma beamed like she'd received the highest praise imaginable. After dinner, Emma was dispatched to finish homework, with promises that Maya would still be there when she was done. Alone with Ethan on the couch, Maya felt the weight of the day settling over her. She's amazing, Maya said. She's a handful, brilliant and exhausting in equal measure. Ethan smiled. She likes you. That's not common. She's suspicious of most people. Smart kid. Takes after her mother. Catherine was the most perceptive person I ever met. Saw through everyone's BS immediately. His voice was soft with memory. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. Very fast, very cruel. Emma barely remembers her, which might be a blessing. I don't know. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's why I was so vulnerable to someone like Vivian. Grief makes you stupid, makes you want to fill the hole any way possible. He looked at Maya. You saved me from making a catastrophic mistake. I haven't properly thanked you for that. You've offered me a job that could change my life. That seems like thanks enough. The job offer is selfish. I need people like you. People who see clearly, who aren't afraid to speak truth to power. Ethan leaned back, tired. Do you know what nobody tells you about being wealthy? How isolating it is. How everyone wants something from you. How you can't trust that anyone likes you for who you are versus what you can provide. Sounds lonely. It's the loneliest thing in the world. And then someone like you comes along. Someone who had nothing to gain from helping me. Who risked her job, her safety, her anonymity to do the right thing. That's rare. That's worth protecting. I'm not your savior, Ethan. I'm just someone who got angry and acted on it. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. Emma returned, homework allegedly complete, and demanded Maya read her a bedtime story. So Maya found herself sitting on a child's bed. reading about a girl who discovered she could talk to animals, while Emma listened with fierce attention. "Do you think that's real?" Emma asked when Maya finished. "Talking to animals?" "I think paying attention is real. Listening carefully, seeing what others miss. That's kind of like talking to animals. You're good at that, paying attention. I've had a lot of practice." "Because you were in foster care and had to be careful?" Maya blinked. "Your dad told you?" "He said you understood what it's like when adults disappoint you, when systems fail. I don't really get what that means, but it sounds sad." "It was sad sometimes, but it taught me things. Made me stronger. Like Batman. Bad things happened, but he became a hero." Something like that. Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked the question Maya hadn't expected. "Are you going to work for my dad?" "I think so, yes." "Good. He needs help. He's really smart, but he gets distracted. Misses things." Emma's voice was drowsy now, sleep creeping in. "You won't miss things. You'll keep him safe." "I'll try." "That's all anybody can do. Try." By the time Maya returned to the living room, Emma was asleep, and Maya was emotionally wrecked. She'd been ambushed by a 7-year-old's wisdom and found herself unable to maintain the careful distance she'd planned. "She asked me directly if I was taking the job," Maya told Ethan. "I said yes." "Are you?" Maya looked at this man who'd trusted her with his daughter, his secrets, his vulnerabilities. Thought about the company he was building and the training center for people like her. Thought about Emma saying, "That's all anybody can do. Try." "Yes," she said. "I'm taking the job, but on one condition." "Name it." "I'm not just your employee, I'm your partner in this. Equal voice, equal say when it comes to decisions that affect the company's integrity. I won't be decorative or symbolic. I'll be real." Ethan stood, extending his hand. "Partners. For real this time." Maya shook it, feeling the weight of the moment. She was stepping into a new life, a visible life, a life that mattered beyond just surviving. It was terrifying and exhilarating and right. 2 weeks later, Maya gave her notice at Aurelius. Jean-Pierre accepted it with grace he probably didn't feel, and the staff threw her a going-away party in the cramped break room. Marcus gave a speech about how he'd always known she was too smart for this place, and Maya cried in a bathroom stall because endings hurt even when they're necessary. Her first day at Cola Technologies was chaos. Technology she didn't understand, systems she'd never encountered. A learning curve so steep it was practically vertical. But Joanne assigned her a mentor, and the team welcomed her without the suspicion she'd feared. The second week, she prevented a fraudulent vendor contract that would have cost the company millions. Noticed inconsistencies in documentation that everyone else had overlooked. Ethan called an emergency board meeting to show them what his new director of strategic intelligence had caught, and Maya presented her findings with confidence she'd borrowed from somewhere deep inside. The board approved expanded authority for her department. Margaret Ashford, watching remotely from whatever retirement looked like for billionaires, sent a message. "Told you so? Call me when you're ready to talk about the next step." By the third month, Maya had a team. 3 analysts who reported to her, who looked at her like she knew what she was doing even when she was faking it. She moved into a better apartment, nothing fancy, but her own space in a building with working heat. Bought furniture that wasn't from thrift stores. Started saving money for reasons beyond emergency funds. Emma came to the office sometimes after school, doing homework in Maya's office while peppering her with questions about everything. She'd decided Maya was her person, the way kids sometimes do, and Maya found she didn't mind. Found it actually felt like family. 6 months in, the Brooklyn Tech Initiative opened. Maya stood at the ribbon cutting, watching people file into a building that represented possibility. She'd helped develop part of the curriculum, a module on reading professional environments, understanding power dynamics, navigating spaces designed to exclude you. A young woman approached her afterward, maybe 20, wearing clothes from the same thrift stores Maya used to frequent. "I read about you," the woman said. "What you did. Taking down that con artist. It made me think maybe I could do something important too. That's why I applied here." Maya didn't know what to say to that. That she'd inspired someone. That her story mattered beyond herself. "You can," she managed. "You absolutely can." As the woman walked away, Maya felt something settle in her chest. Purpose. The thing she'd been searching for without knowing she was searching. A year after the gala, Vivian's trial concluded. Maya testified, calm and clear, laying out how she'd discovered the evidence and why she'd acted. The defense tried to paint her as vindictive, a server with a grudge. The jury didn't buy it. Vivian was sentenced to 15 years. As they led her from the courtroom, she looked at Maya one last time. No rage now. Just exhaustion. The performance finally over. Was it worth it? Vivian asked. Destroying me. Maya thought about the question. About the men Vivian had ruined. About Emma sleeping safely in her bed. About the life Maya had built from one act of courage. Yes, she said simply. It was worth it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Maya had learned to handle them now. Give them enough to satisfy without giving them pieces of herself she wanted to keep. What's next for you, Miss Reed? Someone called. Work, life, helping build something that matters. Not poetry, not inspirational, just truth. That evening, she had dinner with Ethan and Emma at their apartment. It had become routine now, this borrowed family she'd stumbled into. They ate pasta because Emma insisted it was the only acceptable dinner food, and argued about whether aliens would be friendly or hostile, and planned a weekend trip to a science museum Emma had been obsessing over. Normal things. Beautiful things. The kind of ordinary domesticity Maya had never expected to have. After Emma went to bed, Ethan poured wine and they sat on the balcony overlooking the city. I've been thinking, he said, about that partnership agreement. Equal voice, equal say. Regretting it already? Expanding it. I want you on the board, official position, not just advisory. Maya stared at him. I've been here a year, that's insane. You've prevented 4 major security breaches, identified 3 fraudulent partnerships, and built a threat assessment program that's already being copied by competitors. That's insane. The board position is just catching up to reality. I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to the right schools. Half your board probably still thinks I'm some Cinderella story you're indulging. Then prove them wrong. You're good at that. Maya looked out at Manhattan, sprawling and glittering below them. A year ago, she'd been invisible in this city. A ghost serving the visible. Now she was becoming someone, not despite her past, but because of it. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Just like that? Just like that. I've learned that hesitation is just fear dressed up as caution. I'm done being afraid of taking up space. Ethan smiled. That's my partner talking. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city live its million simultaneous lives. Somewhere down there, another invisible person was making the choice to be seen. Another voice was deciding to speak up. Another Maya Reed was stepping into power. The story would continue. It always did. But this chapter, this transformation from waitress to warrior, from invisible to invaluable, was complete. Maya Reed had learned the most important lesson. Power wasn't something you were born with or given. It was something you claimed when you refused to disappear. When you looked at the people who tried to erase you and said no. Not today, not ever again. She'd started as the shy waitress who kept her head down. She'd become the woman who looked up and changed everything. And that, Maya thought, as Manhattan glittered below her, was a pretty good story after all. In the apartment behind them, Emma was probably reading past her bedtime, absorbed in whatever adventure currently captured her fierce imagination. Ethan was checking his phone, never quite off duty, always trying to balance work and life, the ordinary chaos of family. Maya had built this. Not alone, never alone, but she'd built it nonetheless. From one dropped card holder and a decision to step forward instead of back. Sometimes the smallest moments created the biggest transformations. Sometimes the invisible people saw things no one else could. And sometimes, just sometimes, speaking up changed everything. Maya finished her wine and stood, ready to go home to her apartment that was actually nice, in a neighborhood she'd chosen rather than settled for. Tomorrow she'd go to work at a company where people valued her insight. Next week she'd help interview candidates for the training initiative. Next month she'd sit in her first board meeting as an actual member, not a guest. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities she'd earned. But tonight, she just wanted to sit on a balcony with a friend, watching the city that had tried to swallow her whole learn her name instead. Thank you, she told Ethan, for seeing me when I was trying to be invisible. Thank you for saving me when I was too blind to save myself. We saved each other. That's how it works. And in the end, that was the real story. Not about a con artist brought down or a billionaire rescued, but about two lonely people who'd learned that being seen, truly seen, was the bravest thing you could allow. Maya Reed had stepped into the light, and she was never going back to the shadows.